Honeybees are a crucial part of our world.
You know, honeybees are an environmental sentinel. If bees are doing well, we should do well.
I can move them around with my finger. Now there's bees, they're eating honey off my finger. So, you know, bees don't automatically run out and sting you.
When beekeepers open a hive, they find a lot of drama. The guard bees alert others about danger.
See, this one's fanning, pheromone.
That means danger?
Yeah, she's telling the other ones we got an intruder in the hive. See, she got her little bum up in the air and she's fanning. She's giving off an alarm pheromone, an odor, and the smoke that we put in masks it so the one over here doesn't know that she's doing it. We can see if we can rub her back and see if we can calm her down. Now she's upset.
There can only be one queen to rule each hive, and this is what happens if two queens hatch out at the same time. They fight to the death. Sometimes there are intruders in the hive, and the bees have to take action to protect themselves. Sometimes the bees win, sometimes the intruder wins. Sometimes half of the hive decides to swarm. When male bees mate with the queen in midair, their bodies are ripped apart and they fall to their death. Extraction can cause a lot of chaos in the colony. Baby bees are constantly fighting their way out of their wax-covered cells and immediately begin contributing to the work in the hive. And the girl bees throw the boy bees out of the hive in the fall. That day is known as Massacre of the Drones. But the drama doesn't stop inside the hive. Since honeybees are responsible for pollinating most of our crops, the success of the hive has a vital impact on all of us. We're so glad you've decided to come along to see more about the amazing world of honeybees. Hello and welcome to BDU Beekeeping. This class is designed to teach you everything you need to know to get up and running just as quickly as possible as a new beekeeper. My name is Michelle Wright and I've been keeping bees since 2012, and I'm bringing along with me on this class two expert beekeepers, the best beekeepers I know. They taught me everything that I learned about beekeeping, and they're going to share their knowledge with you too.
Hi, I'm Jim Fitzroy. I've been keeping bees from somewhere in the early 80s, probably around 82.
I'm McMillin, and I've been keeping bees since 1972.
I want you to know that the world needs honeybees. They are tiny but mighty. They pollinate 1/3 of everything we eat, including 80% of our crops, so all of the nutritious and yummy stuff that we enjoy.
The value of honeybees for honey is it's a value, but the honeybee for pollination of fruits and vegetables is indispensable.
They're responsible for good things that we eat, as well as the honey is good for us. So, you know, that's the most important thing of honeybees.
By becoming a beekeeper, you are doing so much to help the planet. Without honeybees, we would have less food, we would have less variety of food, and our grocery store prices would skyrocket. This class is divided up into different modules. You can probably see that. And I put them in the order that I think makes the most sense. You're welcome to watch them in whatever order you're comfortable. I suggest, though, that you watch them all the way through one time. And then when you get your bees and you need a refresher on one specific topic, you can just pull up that lesson and make it easy for you. Module 1 is designed to just give you some fun facts about honeybees, a little bit about what you can expect. But I need to start off with two really important warnings. The first one is never give raw honey to babies. Anybody under 1 year old should never get raw honey, and this is the reason why. There's a slight chance that raw honey could contain a spore that is botulism, And that can be deadly to babies because their immune system is not mature. Once we get over the age of 1, we can handle it with no problems, not a big deal. Botulism is naturally found in the soil, and honey is one of the foods that can contain it as the bees are bringing things back into the hive. That's why beekeepers put right on the label, never give raw honey to infants. The next thing to tell you is prepare to get stung. It is not fun. Now, most of the time, it's just kind of annoying. You're supposed to swell up slightly in the place where the stinger gets you, and you'll itch for days. That's super annoying, but it can also be dangerous if you have a reaction on your body in another location. If you get stung in the arm, and then you have trouble breathing, or your tongue starts to swell up, or your lips start to swell up, that could mean you're going into anaphylactic shock. So I highly recommend that as you get started in beekeeping, you get one of these. It's an EpiPen. You'll need a prescription from your doctor. Get this, keep it with you just in case. All right, now for some fun facts about honeybees. There's only one queen bee per hive, and she is an egg-laying machine. She can lay as many as 2,000 eggs a day in the summer. Only one queen bee means if 2 queens hatch out at the same time, they fight to the death. It is very dramatic, but again, only one can survive. Also, the queen bee doesn't make any decisions in the hive. The hive is a democracy, and the female worker bees are the ones that make all the decisions. They go out and they gather the nectar and the pollen. They come back and make the wax and the honey. They tend to the babies, and they're the ones that guard the hive. You'll probably get to know them pretty well every time you open up a hive because the guard bees will come at you.
But bees wear out. The wings wear out on a bee more than anything. They get tattered, and then the bee flies out one day and it might run into something that tears its wing and it can't make it back to the hive and it never comes back. So, the queen continually lays eggs and brood to make replacements for that army of worker bees that do all the work in the hive.
The boy bees don't do very much of anything.
Drones don't do anything in the hive except eat a lot. Their sole purpose is to mate with a virgin queen from a different hive. So like teenage boys, after they eat and get up late, they go out and they hang out on a street corner, which is in the air for them, and we call it a drone congregation area. And when a virgin queen hatches, when she's a few days old, she goes on a mating flight. And like a teenage girl, she knows what corners the teenage boys are hanging out on. So she goes by and they'll all chase her. Now only the fastest and the strongest will catch her. They mate in the air. The drone falls out of the air dead.
When you open a hive, it's important you know what you're looking at. Take a look at this frame. In the middle there is the brood, baby bees. So this is the nursery. After an egg hatches into a larva, the honeybees will cap over that larva in the cell while the honeybee develops into a full-grown adult bee. So that's what you're seeing here in the middle, capped over brood. Also, all of these are female babies because the capping is flat. When you see a patch that's raised, like here along the bottom of the frame, those are the boy babies, and they're bigger, so they need more room to grow. The sort of halo surrounding that patch is some pollen the bees are storing away. It's the protein, and they will feed the baby bees with that. Here's another look at some pollen, which can vary in color depending on the plants they're visiting. It can be really beautiful. On the outside of the frame is where the honey is. So notice the difference in the way it looks. Both the honey and the brood are capped over with wax, but it's a little bit different. The wax there over the honey is thicker to keep the honey pure, and the wax over the brood allows for airflow as that bee is developing. There's something that we do, by the way, to get the entire frame to be filled with only honey, but that's going to be in an upcoming lesson. Here's a look now at what the egg looks like. You can see there's just one egg in every cell. I've zoomed in and stopped the video for you because it can be tough to see. It looks just like a tiny little piece of rice, maybe. This will be a lot easier for you to spot if you use your flashlight. Then after a few days, that egg will hatch out into a larva. And here's a look at some of that larva before it's capped over. It looks like a white worm, maybe. Finally, you'll probably want to look for your queen. But take a look. She is tough to find. Let me zoom in and slow things down just a little bit for you. Here's a clue though. She has a longer body than the others, and her wings only cover about half of her body. She also moves a little bit quicker on the frames than the worker bees. Lots of beekeepers will mark her with a dot, which will make her a lot easier to find. Honeybees don't hibernate in the winter.
Honeybees have the ability to disconnect their flight muscles from their wings. In other words, they can vibrate that flight muscle and not flap their wings, and they use that to be able to generate heat in the wintertime. They'll eat honey, and the cluster slowly moves. If you were to take a time-lapse photography of a cluster, the bees on the outside move to the inside, and the bees on the inside move to the outside, and it has the ability to move that whole cluster around in the hive as they need to move to food.
Even in sub-zero temperatures, that cluster can be anywhere from 72 to 90 degrees.
It's one of the magic things in beekeeping.
A single worker bee will only produce about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her entire lifetime.
So it takes 12 honeybees their entire life to make 1 teaspoon of honey. So you can tell a pond of honey takes a lot of bees.
And they must visit 2 million flowers just for that 1 jar of honey. So when you think about it, $10 for a jar of honey seems like a bargain. Let's talk about the actual honey now. Honey never spoils. That's true unless it gets water into it. And honey is a humectant, which means that it attracts moisture. So if you have a jar of honey and you keep the top off, it will attract moisture from the air, and that's when it can spoil. So it's best to keep honey in a warm, dry place with a top on it so it doesn't spoil. Pollination, by far, is the most important thing that honeybees do. When a bee goes to collect nectar from a plant, some of the pollen sticks on the hairs of her body, and she transfers the pollen from the male reproductive organ of the plant to a female reproductive organ of the plant, and that's what allows seeds to develop. And so you can see how honeybees make romance possible. And as the honeybees go out and gather nectar from whatever's blooming around them and they bring it back to make honey, the taste of honey can vary greatly from year to year, a whole lot like wine in that way. The weather has a big impact on what's blooming and what the nectar flow is that season. I highly recommend that you go out and try various honeys to check out the different taste, from the light, sweet taste of sunflower honey to the bold, complex flavor of buckwheat honey to the individual honey that your yard will make. Finally, as we wrap up this section, I want you to know that beekeepers have their hands full. Right now, around the globe, bee loss per year is at 40%. We're going to do the best we can to help you through that and set your bees up for success. But we should talk about colony collapse disorder. It was discovered in 2006 by a Pennsylvania beekeeper named Dave Hackenberg when he found that his bees were suddenly dying. No good reason. The debate goes on as to what exactly is causing that, but right now most scientists agree that it's a combination of things. It's the varroa mite, it's pesticide, it's the way pollination services are done, and climate change, as well as lack of food, as most homeowners keep their lawns sprayed so weeds don't grow and bees just have less to eat. We're going to talk more about that, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that your hive thrives. All right, let's move on to Module 2.